We do have a quorum with council members Benton, Bradford, Gregg, Kimbrough, Nash, and Porterfield. And then I'll add on other folks who come in. We will be having a speaker for a few minutes today, but before we do that, we do have some legislative items to go through. And before we get started, is there anybody that has anything that they need to have pulled off of a consent agenda? The only item I wanted to, of course, do off of consent was item number 8, which is bills on second reading, but everything else I wanted to do on consent, unless there's somebody that needs to pull something off. If you need to be recognized, please raise your hand. Okay. Oh, Councilmember Porterfield. Oh, okay. Oh, hello. We started without you. I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and get started, and I'll read the captions. And then again, if anybody needs anything pulled off, let me know. I do not see that we had anybody signed up for public comment. And so we'll go ahead and move forward. All right. First item is number 1, RS 2024-267 by Porterfield, Evans, and Bradford, accepts a comprehensive opioid, stimulant, and substance abuse site-based program grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, acting by and through the Office of Justice Programs to the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, DCSO, to serve women with histories of substance abuse disorder who are housed in DCSO facilities during their period of incarceration and upon reentry into the community. Item number 2, RS 2024-269 by Sepulveda, Gamble, Johnston, and others, amends Resolution RS 2022-1906 to update the Metro Action Commission's scope of repairs and safety improvements to Metro-owned child care centers. Number 3, RS 2024-276 by Porterfield, Evans, and others, accepts a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide for the prevention, surveillance, diagnosis, and treatment of HIV/AIDS and to administer a minority AIDS initiative program. Item number 4, RS 2024-277, Porterfield, Evans, and others, accepts a grant from the Marjorie A. Newhoff Private Foundation, Incorporated, to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide funding for the care of shelter animals at Metro Animal Care and Control. Item number 5, RS 2024-278 by Porterfield, Evans, and Bradford, accepts a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide funding for the emergency medical care, the safety net program, and the foster program for shelter animals. Item number 6, RS 2024-285 by Porterfield, Evans, and Swara, approves an application for emergency management performance grant from the United States Department of Homeland Security by and through the State of Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, or TEMA, to the Office of Emergency Management, OEM, to subsidize the emergency management program for Nashville and Davidson County. Item number 7, RS 2024-286 by Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others, approves an application for a Justice for Families program grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Office of Family Safety to focus on finding and implementing collaborative multi-agency solutions to increase interpersonal violence, victim safety, and offender accountability. And then last on the consent agenda, item number 9, BL 2024-231 by Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others, approves an agreement between the Metro Nashville Fire Department, Emergency Medical Services Division, and Vanderbilt University Medical Center to provide clinical training for the students enrolled in the Emergency Medical Technician Program. Do any of these items need to come off consent? Then do I have a motion? All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Thank you, council member. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone not voting? Okay, then let's go back and pick up item number 8, which is BL 2024-230 by Porterfield and Evans, amends Metropolitan Code of Laws, section 12.72.020 with respect to the establishment of administrative fees charged at the Metropolitan Government's tow-in lot. Do we have a motion? All right, it's been moved and seconded, and we also have an amendment. And so I will open up the floor to Councilwoman Delisha Porterfield to explain her amendment.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. The amendment just allows the finance director the ability to also look at this fee. So it will go before the chief of police, but also the finance director. And with that, I would like to move the amendment, please.
Okay, thank you. The amendment has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilwoman Kimbrough.
Thank you, Chair. We discussed this last night at length, and I just want to make sure I do it again on this. I'm opposed to I guess, and I said at some point we need to address this. I think maybe not tonight, but later on, just the whole idea of this Metro towing lot charging these different fees for people who basically have no due process. I see it as punitive in nature. Victims of crimes, say your car is stolen, they recover your car, they take it to the towing lot to process it or whatever they need to do. They call you, hey, we've got your car now. And you're so relieved. Oh, thank you. Let me run straight down there. And you're hit with this bill for your car, and you're a victim of a crime. I just think that is so unjust. Even if you're not a victim of a crime and you have nothing to do with them taking your car, there's no process, there's no due process, there's nothing you can say. You can't say, I don't want to pay this, I want to appeal this. What can I do? It's nothing for you. You pay it or you leave it, and it will continue to accumulate fees and fines. And I just think fundamentally that's unfair. It's not right. And I know what we're talking about now is basically putting something back on the books that was inadvertently taken off, the administrative fee. But I just see this as another fee, another pile on for people to have to pay, regular people with regular jobs who, while you have their car, are still paying a car note. They have to go down there and they're hit with these fees. And I just think it's not right. That's why I voted against it last night. I'll vote against it again tonight. And I think at some point, someone needs to take a look at this. I just think it's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your perspective. How about Councilwoman Porterfield?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my colleague, Council Lady Kimbrough, kind of beat me to the punch there. I wanted to just kind of recap what the conversation was in budget yesterday. There were some concerns, and thank you, Councilmember Kimbrough, for bringing up those concerns for people like myself who may not have been very knowledgeable about how this process works. Based on the conversation that happened in budget yesterday, this was a fee that had traditionally been charged. At some point, it got taken out of the code, and this is to put that administrative fee back in. Based on the concerns that Councilmember Kimbrough brought yesterday, and I thought that they were very valid concerns, I did request that we'll have a meeting, or that I'll have a meeting with MNPD Legal and Finance to discuss possible legislation to determine if we can make sure that cars are processed within a certain amount of time, what that would look like, what type of support would MNPD need in order for that to happen, and also making sure that we can streamline the process of a person asking for a refund, which Deputy Chief Gilder did share with us that there are instances where people are able to get a fee refunded back, and that, you know, he shared that information with people, but we also want to make sure that there's like a streamlined process so that people aren't falling through the gaps, and that everyone has access to the same information. So I'm voting to support it today. However, strongly standing with Councilmember Kimbrough with her concerns, and just wanting to make sure that we can look at this policy to hopefully tighten it up and make it better for Nashvillians.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman Porterfield, for that context. Any other discussion on this amendment? Oh, Councilwoman Porterfield. I'm sorry, Kimbrough.
Just briefly, I just wanted to say this.
Sure.
And the deputy chief did give some explanations and possible ways to cure this, but you still have to figure out, well, because he doesn't work at that place, at the towing lot, so you still got to figure out or be inquisitive enough to continue. I can't pay this, and luck up on getting to some place that may say, well, hey, why don't you make a claim? And even, we talked about claims last night as well, but that's no guarantee that you're going to get it. It's just a place you can go. I still say it lacks due process. I appreciate Ms. Porterfield for agreeing to look further into this. I just want to clarify that part about the chief and what he'll do if you figure out how to get to him.
Yes, thank you very much for that. How about any other discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? We got one opposed. Any present not voting? Okay. The amendment passes. So now we are on the bill as amended. Any discussion on the bill as amended? No discussion. All right, we're ready to move on and vote. All those in favor of the bill as amended? Anybody opposed? All right, we got one opposed. Anybody not voting? Okay, we recommend approval. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now. Since we've covered all of our legislative items, we do have a guest today from the Community Review Board. Director Jill Fitchard is going to come down and she's going to share some organizational restructuring. While she is coming down, I do want to give you all a couple of quick updates just to make sure that they're on your radar. On March the 19th, you should have gotten an email about the Office of Family Safety. They're having an event at their location. It's their 5th anniversary of their facility being opened. It's from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And so that's also on the council calendar of events. Also wanted to make you aware, if you have not signed up to visit the Office of Emergency Communications, please make sure you reach out to Director Steve Martini so that way you can take the tour of that location, because I've got mine coming up and I'm very much looking forward to it, but wanted to make sure that that was on your radar as well. In addition, there were a couple of reports I wanted to call your attention to. This week, the Office of Family Safety's Domestic Abuse Death Review Team released their 2022 Domestic Violence Homicide in Nashville report. I've only started to skim it. I would really recommend everybody reading it. I'm going to go back and read it myself. It's gotten some attention locally related to domestic violence. And also as part of that report, the Office of Family Safety looks for, what are some of the systemic changes that can be made around domestic violence issues. And so I think that'll be important for us to understand. And then I also wanted to mention, lastly, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, the Metro Human Relations Commission released their report last week on the Title VI complaints around Metro Arts. It's really worth watching the meeting. I really recommend reading the report that Ashley Batchelor sent out to us via email. It's very informative, and I think it's going to have play a role in informing us around the next budget cycle as well, since there's a connection to how we wrote an amendment and what is occurring now with Metro Arts. So with that, I am going to open up the microphone for Director Jill Fitchard. If I can remember which one to hit. Is it the clerk or the planning? Is it clerk? Director Fitchard, see if that one works. Is it on?
Push the button, maybe.
I'd like push the green button or push the push button. You have about, I would say, 20 minutes. I don't know if I have the right one on. Yeah, press clerk. Let me do clerk too. There we go.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, good evening. I'm Jill Fitchard, the newly appointed Executive Director of the Nashville Community Review Board. First, I want to say happy Women's History Month and give a big thanks to Council Member Aaron Evans and you all for inviting me here to talk about the newly reconstituted Nashville Community Review Board. As you all know, 2023 was a tumultuous year for Nashville, but particularly hard on the Community Oversight Board. Our ability to investigate cases of officer misconduct was drastically impaired. And although the Community Oversight Board in Nashville was created by referendum with over 135,000 voters voting for the COB best practice model that we had, The state of Tennessee abolished the oversight board in Nashville and across the state by preemption and left us with a very short window to complete investigations and reconstitute to meet the new law requirements for civilian review boards. The abolishment of the COB created confusion for those who voted for the COB in 2018, and many of the community members who had firsthand experiences of police misconduct reported having suffered residual trauma from the news. The Metro Council acted and established legislation to create the new board and voted unanimously to reconstitute the COB into the Community Review Board on October the 27th, 2023. The board had its first meeting to appoint the executive director and accept bylaws, and then I went on to hire back the staff. So since then, we have worked diligently to ensure that we are creating a department that will meet the needs and expectations of the community, one that is operating in a fair, transparent, and impartial manner, that is effective, efficient, and representing the city in excellence. I will share a PowerPoint presentation this afternoon laying out the department's mission, visions, and goals. How we got here is we used an assessment that was created for the COB. We had a professional come in, a professional consultant, a policing expert, and help us kind of reconstitute, figure out where we need to make some changes. And so we also used the mission and vision statements as the framework to move forward the creation of this NCRB. We've divided up the staff and the board members to participate in the process of creating the new department, and we use tools such as questionnaires that we created for specific divisions of the agency. We use something called the Values Inquiry Assessment Activity, which is something that we receive from transformative community engagement, and voices. We used a voices asset mapping activity. We used our NCRB core values, and then we focused on ensuring that the 3 E's, which were efficiency, effectiveness, and excellence, was included in our blueprint. So I'm going to go through, there's a lot of slides, it's pretty dense, so I'm going to, sometimes I might skip over them, but if you have questions, I am free to answer them. So here we go. So the agenda, basic, to cover there's 4 divisions in our department. Administration, intake, compliance, and mediation is 1. Administration is 2, research, and then community outreach and engagement. So if you look at this Nashville the organizational structure, you see that in orange, those are positions that we currently do not have. One is for an executive assistant, a public information coordinator, and a special assistant to the director. And those are positions that they're not in the budget. We have asked for those in this upcoming budget, but the others in green are positions that we currently have. We have 2 positions that are not filled currently. That's the media content manager and the senior research analyst. Our vision and mission statement, the mission statement is to support and value the voice of the community by providing them an opportunity for input on public safety policy proposals, connecting through extensive community engagement, providing an independent avenue to file complaints related to police misconduct, and creating pathways between community members and the Metro Nashville Police Department, one that builds trust, that encourages a culture of accountability and transparency, and that drives for the promotion of a safer Nashville for all people. Our vision is to lead transformational, engaging, and honest conversations centered on policing, justice, and community and public safety in Nashville, the state of Tennessee, and the entire nation. So our core values are transparency, accountability, and integrity. They all are our core values. They kind of intersect. I don't have to go over those, but if you want to see these later, I can share them. But I think with transparency, we want to definitely maintain honest and receptive communication with all of our stakeholders and the public. And we also, for accountability, we want to honor our commitments to the public, our communities, and our service to the Metro Nashville government. And of course, always work in integrity, which in my opinion is respectful collaboration that builds trust with stakeholders, the community, as well as the police department. Our core values we adopted from our national agency, which is NACO. NACO is the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, and I am a credentialed practitioner of oversight, so is a few people in the office. The code of ethics are personal integrity, independent and thorough oversight, transparency and confidentiality, respectful and unbiased treatment, outreach and relationships with stakeholders, agency self-examination and commitment to policy review, professional excellence, and our primary obligation is to the community that we serve. The ordinance adoption, most of you were here when this was going on. The state law that affected the COB preempted the charter and abolished the COB. We had 120 days from July 1st to reconstitute, and we were able to accomplish that on October the 29th, 2023, with the help of the council. The COB, the ordinance adopted by Metro Council was BL 2023-1990, and it was to determine that we would be called the Metro Community Review Board, and thus we took on the Nashville Community Review Board as our current name. The CRB, the board itself, consists of 7 members who must be registered voters in Nashville and not employees of the government. And then all board members shall be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by a majority vote of the Metro Council. But we have in that legislation, the wording is that the mayor is encouraged to consider nominating at least 4 persons from the community organizations or by private petition. That kind of gives some balance to the board, and it won't be so top-heavy under the administration. We use Carlton Myers, the Myers Strategic Solutions, as our consultant, and these were just a few of some of the suggestions. One is the CRB needs an MOU with the Office of Professional Accountability to institutionalize the audit process. The MOU between the CRB and MMPD needs to be renegotiated for the CRB's audits and timely access to data. The mayor's office should ensure that a point of contact attends all CRB meetings, and that the CRB should continue to work with the NCRC for mediation and should expand to include its own in-house Rule 31 mediator, which we do now have. And so I'm going to break these down in divisions. And so I talked a little bit about our strategic planning process already. Some of our limitations currently as right now is a lack of a memorandum of understanding between the 2 agencies. Our bylaws and our board rules have not been finalized. Our current office space is not that accessible to the community. And then we have some current staff vacancies, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to move right into the administration. In those administrative staff roles, we have an executive director, an assistant director, an administrative service manager, and an assistant. We just hired an assistant director, so I think that we are in good standing and can really move forward on some of the work that we have that's been stagnant because of that role has been vacant. What the administrative portion, they cover the budget, our accounting and expenses, human resources, and any open records request, which we do get often, seems like now. Departmental structural changes, revisions, we have to create SOPs, which we have, NCRB department policy manuals, and just standardize the documentation. For instance, like what we call documents and forms, and having that stuff so that it is institutionalized in our department. And if you need something, then we know where to find it specifically by a number. And then, of course, the regular stuff like implementation of monthly staff meetings and communication strategy meetings and those. The goals for each one of these divisions, you'll see SMART goals at the end. The administrative SMART goals is what I just mentioned, to develop standardized procedures, continue to update the policies and procedures for the office, and make certain that our accounting and procurement and budget, and that we're being fiscally responsible. This department, the intake, compliance, and mediation, is the nucleus of what we do in our office. This handles intakes of complaints, as well as if there is mediation. Right now, we haven't had a real solid discussion about mediation because we don't have the MOU agreement with the police department to determine what that would look like. So we have an intake coordinator, an assistant director, and a compliance monitor. We have 5 compliance monitors who all fall under the intake, compliance, and mediation department. The compliance process, which is, like I said, the biggest part of the work that we do, the Nashville Community Review Board, we provide a pathway for citizens to obtain impartial civilian review of alleged misconduct by Metro Nashville Police officers and its employees. The process includes the collection of civilian complaints, reporting those complaints to MNPD's Office of Professional Accountability for investigation, receiving those back, and then reviewing them for accuracy, completeness, sufficiency, and fairness. What is misconduct? A lot of people ask that question. Misconduct by an MNPD officer includes any violation or attempted violation of police department policy or civil or criminal law by any local law enforcement officer. Misconduct may include both wrongful actions by the officer as well as the failure to take required action. And you saw that happen with the George Floyd, the inaction of the officers standing by, they were held accountable for that. So that is a part of misconduct. This is ways to file a complaint. And then the intake to the OPA referral, this is what we have come up with. And all of this, just so that you know, is what we are proposing at this point, because we don't have the MOU agreement to have this understanding of how we will actually do this in real time. So right now we receive intakes via email, phone calls, in person, or web submissions, and then we review it. And once we get it, we send it over to OPA. The first thing the intake person does is to determine whether the case is a Metro Nashville Police Department officer that's involved in an allegation. If it is, they come in, they get as much information as they can from the complainant, and then they send that information over on a form to OPA. And then we wait until OPA completes their investigation and send it back to us. And then we have to separately ask for the records, which, in my opinion, the records should come through at the same time. But anyway, we have to get the time frames intact so that we're not having this waiting game and it's stagnant, because that holds up everyone's timelines, and everyone has specific timelines. OPA is operating on a 45-day turnaround for investigations. But if we get them, if I say 45 days and then it takes us 3 weeks to get the records to be able to review it and send it back to them, if there's any changes that need to be made, it will prolong the process. So we need to work through that with the police department. The review of the OPA findings, they are supposed to return the case to us, and they do. I think so far we have sent over maybe 36 cases, and we've received back 5 or 6. So those timelines are important for us to all be effective in the work that we're doing to meet the needs of the community. Once those come back to us and they're reviewed, and with the final decision, they're supposed to go before the board, and then the board makes determination on whether to accept our completion of the audit, and then it goes to the chief of police for further. Right now, that's not clear, but for further review. What is mediation? Mediation involves the informal resolution of a complaint or dispute between two parties through a face-to-face meeting in which a professional mediator serves as a neutral facilitator where both parties ultimately agree that an acceptable resolution has been reached. We have a social worker in our office, a master's level social worker. She's working on her licensing, but she's now a Rule 31 mediator. And so we believe that either her or the NCRC should be able to conduct some of these mediations that are, I don't want to downplay anybody's complaint, but like something like a discourtesy. Sometimes those are rooted in perspective, and those would be a good fit for mediation. Case identification for mediation, so the cases that can go for mediation would be whether the complaint is, whether the MPD, that's not what I was looking for. Let's just say any case that can go to mediation except excessive force, serious bodily injury, of course, in custody deaths, dishonesty, harassment, or interpersonal violence. Those are not able to be mediated. The officers, if they are eligible, we would also check with MNPD or OPA to determine whether or not an officer is eligible. And then we I think that we can work through this with our MOU and have that specific. But some of the examples of eligible cases are adherence to policy and rules, deficient or inefficient performance of duties, discourtesy, and lack of professionalism. And that chart there kind of gives you a flow chart of what it would look like for mediation. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Once the two parties agree for mediation, then the case is closed at that level. There is no disciplinary in the officer's file at that point. They have agreed to mediate, and that case is resolved permanently. So so these are our SMART goals at the end. So what does all of this mean? It increases accountability of law enforcement. Specifically, it holds law enforcement officers accountable for misconduct and any abuse of power. It's measurable for the review and provide recommendations on a minimum of 5 cases of alleged police misconduct per month. That means those would go to the board. Establish a standardized process for receiving, referring, and auditing complaints against law enforcement. Relevant, address concerns regarding police accountability and mitigate between law enforcement and the community. Time-bound, as I spoke earlier, complete the review and recommendation process for each case within 45 days of receipt. And that's just a number I plugged in. It could be a little more than that. It could be 60. I don't know for sure yet. Inclusive, ensure that the complainants have access to support services and are kept informed throughout the review process. Sometimes when they call us, they not only want to file a complaint, but we also find out that they might need, referrals for food or housing, transportation, and those other things, mental health services or whatever. And then how do we evaluate? We monitor the implementation of recommendations and track any changes in police conduct or community perceptions of accountability. Our research team, you guys have probably heard from them or seen them around. I know that you're receiving their informational reports. So we have a senior research analyst position, a research analyst, and a policy analyst. And some of those reports, the informational reports is the LPR report, FUSIS updates. Right now, on the 12th, actually, we are having the Sexual Misconduct and Trauma-Informed Victim Services report. That will be an open public forum that's going to be held on the 12th at 5 o'clock at the East Community Center. So if you know anyone that would like to attend that public forum, just let them know. And we're going to have that posted on our socials. And we also just released the use of force report. That was the first one that was released since our inception from the COB to the iteration that we have now. Our policy advisory process is pretty extensive. We want to make certain that all of our research is rooted and grounded in evidence-based research. And so it goes through multiple layers in handling and review before it gets to anyone. So the chart is pretty extensive on how we do that. And because we want to center everything in the community and make certain that they're involved, we want to make certain that we have public forums on those public policies that we are moving forward on. So some of their goals is to include survey links in monthly newsletters for community members to submit ideas for research projects. We want to coordinate with our community outreach and engagement person so that we are making certain that we're listening to the desires of our community. We sometimes think that we know most and more than the community and also what their needs are. And so we have to have listening sessions. We have to allow for public comment and public forum. And we also have to just allow for communion with the community to determine what their needs are. And so we want to make certain that we are collaborating with them on a regular basis. We're giving them space, and we're hearing what they're saying about how they're being treated, how they want to be treated, and what direction they would like to move in. And what this does is it enhances transparency and accountability. It increases transparency of board proceedings and decision-making processes. It is measurable. We implement an online dashboard system detailing board activities, decision decisions made and outcomes. That's the transparency piece, so people know exactly what's happening. We want to make certain that we're developing a standardized reporting template and ensuring timely dissemination of reports to the public. I think this will foster trust between the community and the board by providing clear and comprehensive information. And then we want to make certain that we're publishing our findings on the dashboard within 3 months of our goal implementation. So hopefully within this next 3 months, we will be able to have that dashboard up and running. And then these reports ensure that we ensure that the reports are accessible to the community, and including those with disabilities and of limited access to technology. Community outreach and engagement is another big part of the work that we do, because we want to engage the community, especially now that we have changed from a COB to a CRB. It's a lot of confusion still around that. People don't know what we can do, what we can't do. The law is, sometimes they get bogged down in some of the law. I mean, and so it's our job to make certain that they understand exactly what it is that we're doing and how we can assist them when they need help. And so right now, we only have one staff role in that position, and it's a lot. It's a lot. We need to have a public information coordinator. We need another person in our outreach. This is a big community. There's 4 quadrants of our city that she's trying to go out to. And of course, you all know we have a very diverse community. And so one person, it's been a lot of work for that person. And so there's been one of the things that I think that we did really well as a COB is that we went to community centers to have our meetings. We took them out of Metro downtown, and we went to every community center and recreation center and library across the city, from, Bordeaux all the way to Antioch, to Green Hills, to Bellevue, to South Inglewood, everywhere. So we will continue to do that to meet the needs of the public. And then some of the things that we did presentations to community organizations. We attended their meetings. We did town halls and forums. We were on the radio and television. We did some advertisement. There were calls and emails to the community. We were meeting with them as this preemption was happening as well. And then we also had a lot of national support. And I can talk a little bit more about that. And so some of the goals here were, going forward is to develop a staff community outreach and engagement team to ensure that each division is engaged with external facing work and to provide support to the community engagement and outreach specialists. So we're trying to get interns in this particular iteration, more interns. We did host an intern last year, with one person doing that. It was a lot. We initially started with a staff of 10. We're like at 12. So in order to do this work in a very thoughtful, respectful, engaging way, we need more staff to do that. Some of our increased community engagement goals is to increase the number of community members attending and participating in board meetings. We want to achieve a 20% increase in meeting attendance compared to the previous years. Implement outreach strategies such as community forums, social media campaigns, and partnerships with local organizations. Enhance the representation of diverse voices in the decision-making process. Reach the attendance goals within the first 6 months of implementation, and ensure that outreach efforts are accessible to all members of the community, including marginalized groups. And then regularly assess our effectiveness of outreach strategies and adjust as needed to maintain those engagement levels. So that concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We've got some limited time for questions, and I'm happy to open the floor if you've got questions for Director Fitchard. All right, we've got Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you for the presentation, very helpful. I have a question around mediation. When I think of mediation, I think of trying to get two parties to come to an agreement. In these situations where a complaint is being filed, is the role of the mediator to come up with a recommendation?
No, it's the same. The NCRC principles is that they would agree on whatever outcome they, think is successful. A lot of times that is really just listening to one another's perspective of what happened. But there isn't a set particular thing, is from my understanding, how it's worked in the past, is that the two people come together, they talk through whatever the situation was, and at the end, if they both can agree to whatever that outcome is kept confidential. So no, like, I don't get the information, the police department doesn't get it. The mediator is able to bring those two together, and then they determine if it was successful.
The mediator does.
The parties.
The parties. I would just be curious if, do they walk away feeling like they were heard and the situation has been addressed?
Yeah, I mean, we get a little feedback that says that, and then we always ask the complainant, and, they let us know that they felt good about the outcome.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah. Thank you for the question.
All right, Councilmember Kimbrough.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really nice.
Thank you.
I had a question about the MOU, that's the Memorandum of Understanding. And you're saying that you all do not have one with the police department now?
That's correct.
Okay, but you did when you were the COB?
We did.
What's the reason you don't have one now?
So when we had the MOU with the police department, which was a really good MOU, when July 1st, that, from my understanding, how this worked was they were notified by Metro Legal that they did not have to honor that one because it was between the COB and the COB and the police department, and then we weren't reconstituted as of yet. I think that COB. It's complicated because some parts of the MOU they were honoring, and other parts they weren't, based on their understanding of the law and getting that information from Metro Legal.
Okay, but that is something you all can have in the MOU, a memorandum. Don't you need that to kind of be effective?
Correct. So we have an MOU committee with the board, and we've been meeting to work out some of our asks and decisions that we want to help us do this work. I mean, we have to have an MOU agreement because at this point, we don't know what their timelines are. We don't know, is it 60 days? When do we get back these reviews? We have a whole department built on the premise that we are supposed to review complaints. And if we are not getting those complaints back in a timely fashion and getting the information that we need to do that, then we are not able to meet our goals. And so in that way, we would not be successful, and it won't be successful for our city, and it won't create what we're trying to do is to build systems that build community partnership with the police. So that's, it's imperative for the work that we do to have that MOU agreement.
So what's the next step?
So the next step is to have a meeting with the police department and Metro Legal to sit down and take the MOU draft that we've created. I think we have one more MOU committee meeting, and we'll be finished with our draft. And present that to the police department and Metro Legal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Fitchard? All right, I do not see any additional questions. Thank you, Director Fitchard, for being here tonight and sharing more about your department and the changes.
Thank you for
Really
having
appreciate it. And thanks for your flexibility and all the times I changed the date for you. So I appreciate that as well. Last thing I wanted to mention, we have had a request for Metro Action Commission from Councilmember Gregg. So I'll be reaching out to see if we can get Metro Action Commission to come. And then last thing I wanted to give, I only see Deputy Chief Gilder in here now and Mr. Young. Do you have any updates that you need to share with anybody, or you're good? How about Chief Young, do you have any updates you need to share with anybody? Anybody meaning all of us in this room?
I don't know if, Chair Lady, have you shared any of the information about what I think me and you are going to have a conversation with about the safe room or the safe window for the baby?
No, I haven't. We haven't talked about that in here yet.
Okay, so let you know that I went and reviewed some of the videos and some of it that's in place, and I think that's a great idea.
Okay, well then I'll set up some time with you and we can
Yeah,
get into some details.
yeah.
All right, cool.
I think that's all I got.
Okay. Oh, and I'll put in one last plug. Thank you very much, Chief Young. The safe places, you know, we don't have any safe places that any of us turned in to the vice mayor. And so it's been challenging for me to identify a place, you know, as part of the storm and tornado, severe weather kind of effort, you know, with Councilmember Weiner. And so we're going to be encouraged to kind of continue to think through about where we could engage to find a safe place. And so if you're struggling with that, you are not alone, because I am as well. But it's something that we're going to continue to work on. I think the vice mayor will come back with maybe some suggestions or ideas. And I know she's meeting with Chief Swan soon to talk about some of those things. So anyway, you'll hear more about that, I'm sure. If you have anything you need from me, feel free to let me know. But otherwise, I will consider a motion to adjourn. All right, thank you. We're adjourned.